when in 1960, at the age of 27, he saw a picture in Life magazine of the Juniper site, a boat-like shape of a mountain near Mount Ararat. The resulting widespread speculation in evangelical circles that this might be Noah's Ark, stated Wyatt on his career as an amateur archaeologist in 1977. Until his death in 1999, he made over 100 trips to the Middle East. His interest widening to take in a wide variety of references of Old and New Testaments. That's a little bit about who he is. Ron Wyatt, in regards to his Egyptian crossing at the Nuweiba Beach crossing, the state of Egypt had rejected his claims to be impossible. So much of this PowerPoint is going to be coming from his website and his documentaries on Exodus Revealed and the Case for Exodus. The gold of Exodus is, so here we go. I'm gonna just read this little part. The video Exodus Revealed and the Exodus Case by Leonard Wheeler are all Wyatt's work. The gold of Exodus is worthless to truth. Ron Wyatt is neither an archaeologist nor has ever carried out a legally licensed excavation in Israel or Jerusalem. In order to excavate, one must have at least a BA in archaeology, which he does not possess despite his claims to the contrary. Ron Wyatt's work fall into the category of trash, which one fields in tabloids such as the National Enquirer, Sun, and etc. Archaeologist Joe Zayas of Israel Antiquities Authority, IAA, Bob Corcus, The Exodus Decoded and the video, and the Exodus Conspiracy are as worthless as the work of Ron Wyatt and must be discarded. Ron Wyatt's archaeological work on Mount Sinai is also worthless without any factual basis and must be rejected. So this guy is hated by the top people, right? And he's not liked by much of anybody. Okay, so here's kind of a quote from Ron Wyatt. This is from him, and he's noted as being like a modern day Indiana Jones back when he was really active. This is a leading archaeologist on the BAR, which is on the board of BAR, that's the Biblical Archaeological Review magazine. He did a lot of work with these guys. And he says, on the board, once said to me in the presence of McNeil, which was his wife, your problem, Ron, is that you excavate a location to see what is there. You should decide what you want to be there first and then make it turn out that way. Mary Nell had refused to believe me when I told her that this is what archaeologists do. She was shocked to hear it from the horse's mouth. So you can already see in like this specialized field, this scientific field, there's a lot of conflict and there's a lot of human element, right, to this. And so you can already see he's at odds with all the big publications, with all the big names, and his credentials are very soft, right? Okay, so Noah's Ark. Ron Wyatt said the boat-shaped object was Noah's Ark. So this is a picture of that site. I don't know if you can get a little better view. In Turkey, it says the Turkish government and their scientists agree. They have declared the site to be the remains of Noah's Ark. They have declared it a national park and a national treasure. The site is now on the Turkish map as Nuhu Gemisi, Noah's Big Boat. A visitor center has been built at the site, and a full-time security is maintained there. So this is what got him started, was this discovery of Noah's Ark. Of course, it was very controversial at the time. I was watching this guy who was going to confirm all of his work in 2021, and this guy's got a series of videos as he's going through looking at this exact location. And so already he's got these big discoveries of what a lot of people are confirming to be Noah's Ark and this location. So this is what kind of threw him on the map. there's a whole series on this that you could look. We're not going to go into the series of Noah's Ark. I wanted to talk about the crossing, but here's kind of what was able to be seen. This is, you can see that's a person right there walking. And as they kind of started to excavate, you could kind of see the wood. They've actually found rivets. They found things that were considered to not even be invented and during this time. There are all kinds of deck supporting timbers. This whole area has been under intense scrutiny. There's been a lot of people going through there and kind of trying to affirm what's going on. Okay, so that's kind of his intro. He also has gone through much of Moses and coming and leading to the Red Sea and the Exodus. And so he put together his own kind of timeline, breaking out the different Egyptian names and how he believes they play into Bible history. So he's come up with his own chronology, timeline, and what he's been able to connect with the Egyptian culture and Moses and the Jewish culture. So he says baby Moses or Sunmet. Then this is right here on the right, Moses as Tutmosis as an adult, which would be him. And he says what makes this likely to be Moses as an adult is based off of his nose. It's not an Egyptian nose, it's more of a Jewish nose. And so he starts putting his pieces together based off of his process, right? And I think that's what's interesting about archaeology, because you don't really know. You're just trying to connect a lot of dots and put a lot of things together. He goes into very detail on how he connects Moses to Egypt, and then how he connects this crossing. Okay, so there's a traditional route of Exodus, which was the children of Israel wading in shallow water through an area north of the Gulf of Suez while the tide was out. This area cannot be the crossing site, as it does not match the biblical account. A shallow area of water could not drown all of the Egyptian army. Also, they were to leave Egypt proper before encountering the Red Sea crossing. After crossing the Red Sea, the Bible says they encountered the mountain of God of Mount Sinai, which is in Midian. Midian is not in the area we call today the Sinai Peninsula. It is instead in Saudi Arabia and could be found on most maps in that location. The traditional Mount Sinai was found by Constantine's psychic mother, who in the 4th century went around the Holy Land pointing out various sites as the authentic biblical sites, such as a birthplace of Christ, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which was a pagan temple during her time, etc. There is no archaeological evidence of 40 years of existence of the children in Israel and the Sinai Peninsula, and this is from Ron himself. So that's kind of that's what he's saying. So we know that in the Bible, when Joseph was bringing in Israel, that Pharaoh gave them Ramses, or the land of Goshen, which was the best land that Egypt had at that time. And then they grew and they prospered. Now, some Bibles will show that they crossed somewhere in this area, and then they wandered through the wilderness here, and then that this is the Mount Sinai, right? That's what a lot of Bibles will show. And he's saying that makes no sense. And he says, and a part of the problem that a lot of archaeologists believe that to be the case too is he's saying there is no evidence of anyone living here in this area. And so he's showing Egypt, Ramses or Goshen, Saudi Arabia, and Midian. Okay, and so this is this area of controversy. All right. This map shows where Midian's located in Saudi Arabia, not the Sinai Peninsula. Also, Egypt proper is shown in dark green. Light green are areas patrolled by the Egyptians. So here's the Egypt proper in dark green, areas patrolled by Egypt. That's the Sinai Peninsula right there. You can see Mount Sinai. You see Midian right here. And then all this area was part of Egypt roaming. So I'm going to read a couple of verses. I'm going to go to Genesis 47. Verse 11 reads, "So Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, and the best of the land and the lands of Ramesses as Pharaoh had ordered." So you see that they're getting the best place. In verse 27 it reads, "Now Israel lived in the land of Egypt in Goshen, and they acquired property in it and were fruitful and became very numerous." And so then when you come back, there's this descriptions of Egypt proper, and he kind of breaks this out, and that's Goshen right here. So it's right there at the delta. All right, so this slide right here, the Red Sea crossing site found by Ron Wyatt. So he is saying that Goshen, Ramesses, this is where they lived. And he's saying they came this way, wandering through the wilderness, were entrapped by the wilderness as they were fleeing from Egypt, ended up camping here at Nuabi, and then crossing into Midian. So it says, let me see if I have that one here where I can read that. All right. "The children lived in Israel in the Nile Delta area of the land of Goshen," which we read, "and first encamped at the northeast end of the Gulf of Suez, or Succoth, at the beginning of the Exodus." This was the northern end of the Gulf of Suez. Oh, hang on. This was the first point that they went into their camping mode. They traveled through the wilderness of the Red Sea, or what was called today the Sinai Peninsula. After 3 days of fast traveling, they encountered the Gulf of Aqaba at Nuwaba, Egypt. And so I have a couple of verses here that I want to read. But even before I read that, I'm going to read Exodus 12:37, and it reads, "And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men, besides children." And then I'm going to read Exodus 12, verses 40 through 42. "Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass that at the end of the 430 years, even the self same day, it came to pass that all the host of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It is at night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. That is the night that the Lord to be observed of all the children of Israel and all their generations." And that's just kind of going through what the Bible is saying, and then he's trying to connect these dots. In 1 Kings chapter 9, so what he's trying to say is these are the dots put in the Bible, and he's trying to connect those dots. And as he's coming to this encounter of the Gulf here in the Red Sea, he makes note that the Gulf of Aqaba, Yam Suf, or the Red Sea, Ethan is considered to be Elath in Israel today, or Elath, Israel today. So he's making this note in 1 Kings 9:26. Oh, go back. All right, 1 Kings 9:26 reads, and this is King Solomon. It says, "Now 3 times King Solomon built a fleet of ships in Ezon-Geber, which is near Eloth, on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of Edom." So you're seeing that even King Solomon was active in this area. And so he's talking about this fleet of ships, and so he's trying to make these connections to the familiarity that Israel had with the Red Sea and the crossing of the Red Sea. It says, when they traveled through the wilderness of the Red Sea, in Exodus 13:8, escaping Pharaoh's army, God told Moses to turn south, so they headed through a wadi or canyon near area that's called the Wadi Widder, which led to the Red Sea. So we'll go to Exodus 13 and verse 18. And it reads, hence God led the people around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea, and the sons of Israel went up in martial array from the land of Egypt. So what he's trying to do is take those verses and then make that connection where he's saying God told them to turn south. Okay, so. Oh, in the land, Joseph in the land of Egypt?
Joseph, yes, in the land of, yes. And so, and if you read a little further, it says that Moses took the bones of Joseph.
Right, in verse 19, Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, and he had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely take care of you, and you shall carry my bones from here with you. Right.
Because earlier you talked about they didn't see the evidence of something being around. 17 years is not a long time.
Yeah, definitely. So then I have another note here. It says Exodus 14:3, and this is kind of talking about that South Canyon turn and how Israel was trapped. And it says, for Pharaoh will say to the people of Israel, they are wandering in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. The children of Israel traveled 20 miles through this canyon area that routed them to the Red Sea crossing. So this little area right here is that canyon, and this is the Wadi Widder, which has them entangled in the wilderness. So that little crossing, and then this is the little beachhead, and then he's saying this is the crossing right here, and then Egypt's this way. So he is using this reference as the wilderness having them shut in, and now he's trying to look to see whether or not if that is the case. And so when you kind of look at what this area looks like, he's showing that today too, you know, the mountains are pretty high, so they're pretty shut in, and you only got one way in and one way out, right? So that's kind of the visual of what he is showing with his route. Here's another visual right here. It says the 5 miles along the beach, all this area right here, where the children of Israel were trapped at the dead end. Some were ready to blame Moses for their soon defeat at the hand of the encroaching Egyptian army. So when you're thinking about the total amount of people that were coming out of Egypt, I mean, that's a lot of people. So where would they have enough room to encamp? And that's part of the argument and the discussion here. And so you see this massive space. Okay. The beach where the crossing took place, looks like the formatting kind of got readjusted when I put it here. In Exodus 14:2, it says, speak unto the children of Israel that they turn and encamp before Pitheroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Baal-zephon, before it shall ye encamp by the sea. Okay, so I'm getting a little tongue-tied here, but basically what he's saying is that the Bible is saying in these areas is where you're to camp, And so what he's saying here is that this is Pihahiroth. And if you look at the maps today, it kind of shows this to be the case. Migdal's down here, which was an Egyptian fortress, and then he's showing this crossing right here, or this beach, the Nuwabi beach. It says, here we see the mountains that were obstructing their escape. It says, to the south, the mountains came down to the sea, as mentioned in Josephus. And so if you look to the south here, the mountains come down to the sea. And so he makes a note from Josephus in Antiquities. And it says, for there was on each side a ridge of mountains that terminated at the sea, which were impassable by reason for their roughness and obstructing their flight. And so he's taking references from Josephus and tying them into what he's saying is his discovery. So there's those mountains to the south. We know that there's a fortress up here to the north. And so that's what he's showing there on that image. Oh, well, did I miss anything here? All right. So then the next one is, if you look on the map, for a beach area large enough for about 2 million people to encamp at the Gulf, there is only one candidate, and it is Nuweiba, Egypt, which is that beach right there. The beach at Nuweiba is extremely large and would have accommodated a large number of people at the time of Moses. Pihahiroth means mouth of the hole, which would apply to the mouth of the canyon above. As mentioned in the Exodus Revealed DVD, Migdal is a fortress which we would apply to the ancient fort, which is located to the narrowest point of the beach where the Gulf and the mountains are in proximity. Today, you will find many hotels at this 5-mile long beach and a village. And so he's saying, right here, there's a lot of hotels, there's a village, there's all this 5 miles right here, there's a lot of activity. And if you were to look at what's going on in this area where he's showing Migdal, there's a lot of ancient ruins that they believe was part of the one of the Egyptian fortresses that was there. So that's what he's showing right there on that map. See if I missed anything. All right, so we're going to look at this granite column right here on this next slide. And what's kind of interesting about that, he's calling this out as the granite column Solomon. It says this column matches one on the other side in Saudi Arabia, which had inscriptions intact. Now, what's interesting is there's one on either side, and one of them had a lot of the inscriptions marked off, and then one of them on the Saudi Arabia side still had a lot of the inscriptions still on it. So when he found the one with the inscription still on it, the Hebrew words Mizrah, which is Egypt, death, water, Pharaoh, Edom, Yahweh, and Solomon were all on the column. Apparently, one could conclude King Solomon had these columns erected 400 years after the miracle of the crossing of the Red Sea on the dry land. Solomon's seaport was at the northern tip of the Gulf of Aqaba at Eliat, which we read in 1 Kings 9:26. And he was very familiar with the Red Sea crossing site as it was in his neighborhood. The Bible even mentions this column. So if you go to Isaiah 19:19, it says, in the day there will be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar to the Lord at its border. And you can visit this site today, and you can see the column in person. So this is the column that exists today. You cannot really see the inscriptions on there, but there are these inscriptions that have been picked up on there. It is right here. There's this road passageway that comes through here, so it's going to be that spot right there. It's about 500 feet from the Gulf. So it would be right there today. So if you were to go to the area, that granite column would be right there. And when he originally found it, it was in the water. So he had to pull it out of the water, and then they had to move it over there. So if you go to Google Earth, this is what you'll find if you look on Google Earth. So I thought that was pretty interesting that he found these 2 points called out on either side. What's interesting too is the name Nuweiba or Nuweiba is short. So right now you keep seeing this call out Nuweiba. Now when you go to older maps, there's a full name right here. Nuweiba al Muzayyan Niha. I don't know. Maybe somebody who can read that a little better than me. Anyways, what's interesting about that name, when you translate it, it says waters of Moses opening. So this, to him, he says, this is an amazing, the exact spot where the crossing took place. We have the site confirmed by maps. So this is what he found so this is the wadi right here. That's the little beach peninsula area we were looking at. All right, here's the Red Sea. And then you have this old map, and you can see the older inscriptions right here. And when you translate that, the waters of Moses opening. So he's pulling together a lot of dots, and he's making all these connections, which is pretty interesting to me. Let's see. I'm going to go to Isaiah 51:10. And I'm going to read that out loud. Was it not you who dried up the sea, the waters of the great deep, who made the depths of the sea a pathway for the redeemed to cross over? So this is this question of Isaiah. It's a rhetorical question, talking about God's power and this crossing. So God caused a strong east wind to blow the waters back so the people could walk 10 miles through the Red Sea to the safety of Arabia. The pathway is about a quarter of a half mile wide and is a gradual slope down on the bottom of the Red Sea, and then up to the Saudi beach. On either side of the path are the depths of the Red Sea, the Iliad Deep and the Arganese Deep, each 5,000 and 6,000 feet deep. So what he's talking about here is this crossing has a gradual slope, and it's about half a mile wide. So from there to there, it's got this gradual, almost like a sandbar. And then on this side, you have 5,000 feet deep, and on this side, you have 6,000 feet deep. So you have like this natural uplift, this natural undulation underneath the seabed here. All right. I'm going to turn to Exodus 14. If somebody wants to read Exodus 14, verses 21 through 31. So that is an incredible account of what had happened. And all of Pharaoh's army. What's interesting about Pharaoh's army is all the chariots he had. And because it's his army, gold and all the gold leaf and the plated things, there should be some evidence of that to be found. And so with that being said, if you were to look across at those two points, all you got to do is, so all he did was he set his instruments to shoot a frequency to look for gold. And what he ended up finding was these various spokes with the wheels on them. The chariots were fixed axles at attention to the seat, and there's a lot of them. He's got a lot of photos. This one, it says, the photo of a gilded chariot that remains at the bottom of the seafloor. It was found by Ron Wyatt using a molecular frequency generator from his boat above. After he set the equipment to search for gold, the Bible said all the chariots of Egypt and 600 choice chariots, all gold veneered models, were in the army pursuing God's people. It is speculated there were 20,000 chariots destroyed that day. Right is a drawing of a 4-spoke chariot found in an Egyptian tomb from the same time period. 4, 6, and 8-spoke wheels are found in this gulf and were only used at the same time during the 18th dynasty in 1446 when the Exodus took place. So he's dated everything. He's got these references of this 4-spoke chariot, and then he found one because he used his gold frequency thing, so he was able to discover that. So he's kind of showing these connections as he's connecting these dots using the Bible as a bit of a roadmap. Here he found this bones, this human remains. It's mineralized, but when it was measured, it was 165 to 100 centimeters, which is about a person who's about 5.5 feet tall. So he's been able to discover all these things just by using the Bible as a bit of a roadmap. So this was a very interesting quote that he said. The majority of archaeologists today do not have enough faith in the Bible as the accurate word of God. The majority of archaeologists do not even believe in the exodus of the children of Israel from Egypt, according to Herschel Shanks, editor of the Biblical Archaeological Review magazine, which that's a very interesting and powerful statement. And they are skeptical of the Bible account because perhaps because of a lack of archaeological evidence in the Sinai Peninsula and a lack of faith. We cannot look to these men to tell us where or if the Exodus took place. And I think that's probably the main point there. It's like to have someone go through all of this, to be labeled as someone who doesn't know what he's talking about. And yet he found a lot of strong, powerful evidence, and to be, kind of mired for all of his efforts because he's not a quote-unquote expert. I think the point for us to drive is like God's word is absolute no matter what man says, and man is obviously fallible in how they perceive and come to these conclusions. The next lesson really drives home that there's a lot of archaeological evidence that proves that the Bible is real and it's God's word, and it's used a lot for a lot of discoveries, even though a lot of the scientific men do not want to use it. And you even see the controversies within the biblical archaeological review community. Like there's even though they're pursuing biblical archaeology, even within them there's infighting. So it's pretty interesting to kind of see what's happening behind the curtain. I hope that was interesting to y'all and kind of telling of what goes on into some of this stuff. Thank you.